Moneycontrol Startup Conclave 2024 brought together policymakers and startup leaders to explore the future of India's startup ecosystem and gain insights on the next wave of entrepreneurial success. This flagship event provided a platform for dynamic discussions among entrepreneurs, investors, and policymakers.
There's lots happening in Bengaluru on the policy side. So please put your hands together for Mr. Priyank Kharge, Honorable Minister of Electronics, IT and BT, Rural Development and Panchayati Raj, Government of Karnataka for a keynote address. Sir, please come up on stage.
A lot of people think that Karnataka became an innovation ecosystem overnight. It did not happen like that. It has taken us more than 3 decades of hard work, more than 3 decades of planning, more than 3 decades of persistence and consistent policy making to reach where we are here. We are first in service exports at a whopping close to around 4.3 lakh crores. We are very high on the foreign direct investment inflows with close to around 38%, with 40% share. We are number one in electronics design in India. In machine tools manufacturing, we have a 52% share. Aerospace and defense manufacturing, we have 65% share. And Karnataka is currently exporting close to around 5 billion worth of electronic goods. In biotech production and services and exports, we have a whopping 60% share. We have the highest number of female employable talent. 85% of funding in e-commerce marketplaces has been in Karnataka. $70 billion have been raised by Bengaluru-based startups since 2010, and a whopping $15.1 billion funding has been raised just this year, the last financial year. And Bengaluru leads the way in funding raised in B2B and B2C as well. In B2B, we have raised close to around $34.9 billion, and B2C, we have raised close to around $4.9 billion. We have close to around 1,100 active women-led startups, out of which they have raised close to around $9.8 billion. Close to around $10 billion have been raised only by the women startups. And startups are just not limited in Bengaluru. We have gone beyond Bengaluru. You will be quite surprised how innovation is thriving right across Karnataka. In the Mysuru cluster, we have close to around 402 startups. In Mangaluru cluster, we have 432. In Hubli, Dharwad, Belgavi cluster, we have close to around 463. Close to around 1,500 innovative startups are all over Karnataka who are not even leveraging the Bengaluru ecosystem. And soon we are launching an entrepreneurship program, perhaps the first of its kind in the country, where if you have quit your job to become an entrepreneur, for 1 year we pay a salary of 25,000 rupees for you. I know it's a small amount with high inflation, but at least we will be ensuring that your domestic expenses are taken care of. And more importantly, if you are registered with the government of Karnataka, if you have participated in the Elevate program, if you have won in the Elevate program, the government of Karnataka is also your first customer. We have also come out with a public procurement policy so that the government becomes your first client, first customer in any of the disruptive technologies that you might have. The cash line for Moneycontrol's Startup Conclave is persist, reset, and rebuild. And I'd like to assure you that the government of Karnataka too believes in this. We are very persistent with the policies. We are ready to reset to ensure businesses thrive and generate employment. And we are ready to rebuild to ensure you become entrepreneurs and the entrepreneurs become successful. So thank you so much for your attention, and thanks for having me over. Have a nice evening. Jai Hind, Jai Karnataka.
Thank you, sir, for that inspiring dialogue. I would request you to stay on stage, please. We also have on stage Dr. Ekroop Kaur, ITBT Secretary, Government of Karnataka, and they will be joining Chandra for an insightful conversation.
Priyank, we've called this session, Can Karnataka Retain Its Edge? And you've sort of proved that it can when it comes to being the tech and startup hub. But how worried are you about Amravati? Because, Chandrababu Naidu has this track record of transforming Hyderabad to Cyberabad. Are you, or, you're dismissive?
Do I look worried? Just this budget, they got 15,000 crores to build Amravati. By the time that 15,000 reaches Delhi to Amravati only, we would have finished everything.
The
See, competition is good. It's always good for us. It makes us, the government engages more with the companies and the corporates and the industries. We get to learn, we get to see how we can make our policies better, sharper than the rest. All the things that I spoke today, all the data points that I gave today is because we have policies that are future looking. I'm coming up with a circular economy policy. I'm coming up with state-specific space tech policy. We are coming up with a GCC policy. I mean, all this is because the industry, we are talking, we are having a dialogue with the industry, number one. Number two, we are also heavily focused on skills. See, it's just, like you rightly said, why should I be worried about Telangana or Amravati? Maybe not now, maybe sometime later on, because every time, as soon as any new investment comes in, I give them land, subsidized tariffs, power, water, everything. But I believe in Telangana and Andhra, they just fall short of beating all incentives and subsidies that we give, plus just fall short of the government work desk being in there. So that's how aggressive they are. But the way we are working is, we are providing an entire ecosystem: education, research and development ecosystem, innovation ecosystem, policy ecosystem, skill ecosystem. So this, I don't think anywhere else you will find.
Dr. Kaur, one can argue that, I mean, there are two big EV companies in Bangalore, right? Ola Electric, which just listed today, and Ather, which I think will list in some months. But their manufacturing facilities are in Hosur, in Tamil Nadu. Now, how are you going to ensure that the next wave of companies make in Karnataka, that you don't miss out on that?
We have always had very, very specific, sector-specific policies. And while under the ESDM policy, we are supporting some of the automotive tech part of it. But we are also coming out with a new clean energy policy, which automobiles will be one part of that. And I think it is going to be so attractive that nobody will be able to, refuse or looking at Karnataka. The other big advantage is that because all the R&D is happening in Karnataka, there is a huge potential in Ola. Actually, it grew in Karnataka and then moved out for its manufacturing. So I am sure with the new policies and the way the government is now very focused on creating industrial townships around Bangalore, which has actually been the demand for industries which are very tech-oriented, having high-end skills required. So with those kind of focus, I'm sure we will be able to attract these companies back to Karnataka.
Mr. Amitabh Kant, a seasoned bureaucrat. He's the former CEO of Niti Aayog and has been instrumental in driving flagship initiatives such as Make in India and Startup India. He currently holds the prestigious title of India's G20 Sherpa. We all owe it to him how India's perception on the global landscape has evolved positively even more after the super success of G20 hosted by India last year. Please welcome Mr. Amitabh Kant on stage.
What role, from your point of view, can startups play in the India growth story?
Startups have to be a very major driver of growth, and they have to be a major driver of job creation. Jobs are not created by large companies. Disruption doesn't happen by large companies. They are all status quoist in character. So if India wants to do a lot of disruption in a range of new technologies, if you want AI to grow, if you want machine learning to grow, if you want geospatial technologies to grow, if you want batteries, storage to grow, if you want electric vehicles to grow, all this will never happen from large established companies. The disruption will all happen from young dynamic companies and young entrepreneurs who will break new grounds. And when they do that, they will spur growth, they will create jobs, but they'll also challenge the established players. I mean, just to give you an example, if the young startups had not pushed for electric vehicles, the established players would not have gone in for new models of electric vehicles. They challenged the established players, and that's why you have, even the established players now coming out with newer and newer models. So it's a lot of credit to the young entrepreneurs who have pushed the limits in many, many of these areas of growth. And without that, you won't have a dynamic India. You won't have India growing at high rates.
So India, of course, has about 100 plus unicorns. The valuation is over 350 billion combined. 20 times the funding has increased in the last few years for startups. 12 times the number of investors. But you have also spoken fairly eloquently in the past on the challenges for the startup ecosystem and what needs to be done. If you can speak to that a little bit.
First and foremost, challenge is that the startups need to have a better governance model, particularly a better model of financial governance. We've had several stories of in the startup world where they've acquired huge valuation and yet collapsed miserably, sending out shock waves. And therefore, it's very important that there is a sense of great financial discipline among startups. Startups are new, they are disrupting, but then they grow and evolve. And as they grow and evolve, there's a need to bring in good governance, there's a need to bring in audit, and there's a need to bring in self-governance, not from outside, but self-governance. And this requires a huge amount of financial discipline. So one of the things we did in G20 Startup was to lay down the parameters of self-governance. And without self-governance, the startup movement will get a bad name. So this is very critical to my mind.
So one of the things about funding is that about 70%, 72% of funding for startups in India currently comes from foreign sources. Yeah. So do you think we need to develop much more sources of domestic funding to make it sustainable?
Absolutely. So, not 70, 78% of the funding is coming from foreign sources in the startup movement. So you're very dependent on foreign sources of funding. You need domestic sources. You need Indian pension funds. Regulators need to open it up. You need family business houses. You need large companies. Many of them who are now investing, but you need that movement to grow in a much, much bigger way. So Indian sources of funding, particularly large insurance companies and many of these petroleum companies, which are large Navratnas, all should put resources into the startup movement of India. It's very, very important if you want disruption to take place in India.
Our next session has some of the founders and investors who are the hardest to pin down. A freewheeling chat between the top bosses of SoftBank, Swiggy, and Delivery. I invite Chandra to take this chat ahead, and joining her on stage is Sumer Juneja, Head of India and EMEA SoftBank Investment Advisors, Sahil Barua, Co-founder and CEO, Delivery, Sri Harsha Majeti, Co-founder and Group CEO, Swiggy.
Sahil, it's been 2 years since you became a listed company?
Yeah, it's about 2 years and 3 months.
You keep track to that level? Do you look at the share price every day?
It's 9 quarters.
Right, but what has changed for you? How has life changed for you? You're used to the quarter tak analyst calls and updates and everything now.
Yeah, I mean, we sort of were practicing for this for quite a while before we went public with our board, with Sumer and Co on our board in any case. And we run a fairly predictable business in some senses. So it's easy for us to kind of explain how our decisions are going to play out to the markets. I think once you get past the shock of your stock price moving up and down on a regular basis, I don't think life's changed all that much. The only difference is now we have to communicate to obviously a much broader set of people than we did in the past. And unfortunately, it looks like everything we say takes on a little more importance than it did when we were private. So we just have to be more careful. But yeah, not much change.
Harsha, confidential filing done. How are you preparing? You've expanded your board, hired
We expanded
everything.
our board about 18 months back,
Yeah.
Chandra. So I think we've been preparing to make the company ready. I think it's also been, that part is like a dry run to understand how everything works. So we've, even the compliance, the tech stuff that needed to get ready, the accounting stuff, all of that has been in the works for a while. So yeah, I think we are on our way. We're preparing to go for the final step.
Right. And, Sumer, Sahil, both of them are on your board. What do they tell you about becoming a public listed company? What's the biggest thing you should watch out for? Or you don't have those kind of discussions?
Of course, we have these kind of discussions. We have board meetings, and then there are other meetings. So there's always these conversations. No, I think, had long chats with Sahil about his learnings, and Sumer has seen this also through his portfolio companies. No, I think can't whittle it down to like any such specifics. I think as we go into the next stage, I think obviously performance is paramount. That is the most important thing. Then communicating your strategy transparently, being clear, just communicating clearly is, I think, the next big learning for us. The rest, I don't know if anything should change. If you're focused on, long-term stakeholder value and long-term performance, that part needs to continue. And I think also too, we will have, when we go public, a much wider set of stakeholders than we've had. We would have like maybe 30, 40 investors, small, large, of all types today. But that will expand into thousands, hundreds of thousands, whatever. So I think listening in even more and understanding the parts that are constructive and making sure that we pick them up and act on it to make the business stronger is, I think, another big one that we've learned.
Sumer, how has SoftBank's exit profile been for you compared to other markets? I mean, I think you've fully exited Zomato, PB Fintech, Paytm, Delivery. Also, you've been offloading shares. Give us a sense of that.
No, so I think specifically for the fund, Vision Fund 1 was started in 2017. So I think when all the ducks align, and it's a good market for us to exit. It's also where we are in the company life cycle. But we obviously have to return our funds to our LPs. And so we will exit when we think it's the right time. India has been honestly a phenomenal market for us. I was saying for the Vision Fund, in terms of exits and returns, India is probably right at the top. We've had not only obviously all the public market exits, we had Flipkart when Walmart came in, and also just directionally, if you see the up rounds in a lot of our private companies, I think we can say that the India portfolio is definitely one of the best we have in the Vision Fund.
We have in our midst Dr. Devi Shetty, a visionary cardiac surgeon who made high-quality healthcare affordable and accessible. For the first time, he will share the stage with his son, Viren Shetty, the Vice Chairman of Narayana Health. Please welcome the father-son duo on stage.
What are the lessons that you can share about how to build loyalty in a team, how to find people? What are the leadership qualities you need to look for in the people who you have to work with and face on a daily basis, whether in surgery or in all the other in management?
We have perhaps some of the most talented doctors who can earn maybe 3 times in working for other hospitals. But they choose to work with us. And we have people who are extremely competent and in non-medical areas, amazing people. They choose to work with us for decades and decades. It's not me, it is the purpose. We grossly underestimate the power of purpose. As a startup, when you start a venture, when 2-3 youngsters get together, they want to start something, the discussion is about what to do, which product or which service. Then the next question is how to do. But very rarely, startups ask why. Why to do? If the why question is answered in the beginning, if the purpose is explained in the beginning itself, and if the purpose is going to make life of millions of people better, believe me, cosmic forces will connive for your dream to come true. So when they join our organization as they work, they realize that no patient is turned away. And no patient undergoes a procedure which is not required. And there are many things what can be done to improve the business which we don't do. So this is the reason why very rarely doctors leave our organization. It's nothing to do with me, it is a purpose. In India, people do not have the money to pay for the health care, but I realize they have the money to pay for the health insurance if it is affordable. Why were you convinced that that is a way to go forward and we should own a health insurance company? And once again, I didn't support you. Why were you so convinced that it has to be done?
Why we should do insurance company? That we had zero confidence. We run hospitals. We used to run heart hospital. Then we got into running multi-specialty. People said you'll be useless at running multi-specialty, but we did it. We're not good at it, but then we keep getting better every year because we keep trying. So with insurance, we thought, let's work with other people. So I visited the head offices of the other large insurance companies. I worked with them to try and understand, can we do a partnership? Can we work on this together? And I realized that these guys, this is the arrogance of me speaking, that they don't know what they're doing. But two, I realized that they will never be aligned with the way that we want to run health insurance. Then running the hospital, we know how difficult a time our patients have. They sold a policy, they think it covers 10 lakhs, actually doesn't cover anything. They have to pay so much out of pocket. They scream at us, they scream at the insurance company. It's not a happy situation. You called the head of the IRD. He was very happy to hear from us, Mr. Panda. And so we made the application. Again, not knowing anything. We didn't know anything about insurance. We didn't know anything that, we just know health. We know healthcare, we know patients, we know what people want, and we know what makes them happy. And we know that an insurance plan that does not pay for everything does not make people happy. Everything else was just filling in the blanks. We had to change the structure, we had to make it a different kind, we had to look at managed care, we had to build clinics, we had to build software, we had to build a whole new team from scratch to build this. But essentially, this thing came because you kept saying this should be done, there has to be better insurance, there has to be a better system. So fine, if no one else is going to do it, we'll do it. After so many years, after all that you've achieved, after doing surgeries, and you still wake up very early, you go for work, you do your surgery, you see 80, 100 patients, you come home, you feed your grandkids, you take them out. How do you stay motivated to keep at the same company, the same role, and keep doing it well into your 7th decade?
I want, especially the entrepreneurs, if you love your work, it stops being the work. It is not a work, it is a joy going for work. It is a joy working from morning till evening because you love what you're doing. So I am very lucky to be in a position to enjoy what I am doing. I don't look at it as a burden. I look at it as a place where I can relax. When I operate on the heart, I am the most relaxed person. For me, that's where I belong. That's what I want to do. As long as possible, as long as God allows me to do it. In certain professions, there is no work-life balance. If people ask me what the work-life balance in my profession, I want to ask them a question. What is the work-life balance of a soldier in Siachen Glacier, protecting our border so that we are all safe? What kind of a work-life balance he has? He chose to do this, and we chose to do this work. So we can't be really questioning about the work-life balance.